26th of January 2020, we had the first case. A young girl, medical student who flew from Wuhan to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Calcutta, Calcutta to Bangalore, Bangalore to Cochin, and then to her hometown. And she had fever. We detected that and found that it was COVID positive. We took another 24 hours, we took the sample to the National Institute of Virology in Pune, tested it again, and then it was confirmed and they declared to the government of India that the virus had entered our shores. The government was quite swift in their action, and they immediately set up a group of secretaries, group of ministers, and they were meeting every day. They were very serious, whether it was for PPEs, whether it was for testing kits, whether it was for oxygen, whether it was for drugs, whether it was for vaccines. We were on a war. And this war started on the 26th, 27th of January 2020. At that point in time, there were deaths occurring in the United Kingdom, deaths occurring in Italy, people were dying in Iran, Spain, all the elderly homes were shut because people were dying. We had to fight with this. We had very limited testing kits. When we wanted to ask the WHO for those testing kits, they said we have only limited quantity. China was manufacturing the kits. We asked them for kits. They said buy them within the next 2 hours, otherwise we'll divert them to some other country. Then some of the youngsters like yourselves came forward and set up startups to manufacture those kits. By the March of 2020, March or April, India had become self-sufficient in diagnostic kits. During February and March, we were able to isolate the virus. We asked several international agencies for the virus, but they were unable to provide us with the virus. So we had 15 Italian tourists who were touring India from Rajasthan to Agra, and they fell sick with COVID. We were able to collect their samples and isolate the virus. Once we isolated the virus, that opened up a new chapter, whether we want to make testing kits, whether we want to make antibody kits, whether we want to make vaccine, whether we want to make drugs. So we were the 5th country in the world to isolate the virus, and we were the 1st country in the world to isolate the alpha virus and also the other virus. I don't think this is very clear. Yeah. So we tested more than 900 million samples. We were the 1st country in the world to start testing by portable molecular testing, again developed by a young scientist. They had developed a kit for testing tuberculosis in 2017-2018 called TrueNat. We repurposed it for testing COVID-19, and by April we had many of those tuberculosis machines across the country, and we were able to utilize that for testing. The second thing that we did was we were the 2nd country after Korea to use the rapid antigen tests. During the first wave of June of 2020 in Delhi, we deployed the rapid antigen kit, and that again manufactured by young startups, and our country was self-sufficient, and by June we were exporting to many parts of it. Then on 10th of May we had a meeting with the cabinet secretary, and he said, Dr. Bhargava, what do you feel can be done? Can you write on it and give it to me? I wrote on a simple piece of paper 2 lines: stop all international travel. Number 2, impose a nationwide lockdown. He said, you have tremendous clarity of thought in your mind. I said, yes, that is the way we can prevent this pandemic from exposing us in a huge big way. We will get time to develop our healthcare facilities. As we are able to, rather than getting the curve like this, we can flatten the curve and prolong it, and therefore we will get more time. He says, okay, you have to make a presentation to the leadership on 18th of March. 18th of March, we made a presentation to the leadership, and he was of the opinion that only science can lead this war against COVID-19, and I would go by science. And the next day, he declared the Janata curfew, and then we had the national lockdown. During the national lockdown, what happened is, because the Indian Council of Medical Research had the BSL-4 laboratory, it was the first laboratory of its kind in Southeast Asia. The Wuhan lab that was set up in 2011, this Indian lab. The Wuhan lab was set up in 2017. That was the second BSL-4 laboratory in Southeast Asia. So because of that, the ICMR became the epicenter, and the headquarters in Delhi became kind of a war room for fighting COVID-19. We had the Ministry of Defense, we had the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we had the Ministry of Railways, Postal Affairs, Research Analysis Wing, all were centered, and we used to work from 6 a.m. till 12 p.m. at night, just captive in that headquarters at near All India Institute, which we are representing that building of the ICMR. So that's where we were working day in, day out, and we had 4 phases of the lockdown of 9 weeks. And during that lockdown, we had 24/7 mission for carrying consumables, testing kits, PPE kits, all by helicopters, railways, as well as Air Force. During the lockdown, we were able to take those to different remote areas of the country. This was like a war that was happening. Then during February of 2020, we had some pilgrims of ours who were visiting Iran, and at that time Iran was burning. So we had to evacuate them immediately. But how to evacuate them before testing them? So we had set up a testing laboratory in Iran. But Iran had shortage of testing kits, so we couldn't set it up in the city. So we set it up in the basement of the Indian embassy in Iran. And we tested those people, and then they were all flown back by Iran Airlines and Indian Air Force to quarantine centers. And these quarantine centers were created like on a war footing. They were created in Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, Indian Air Force Base, and this is February month when it was cold, blankets, food, water, everything was arranged. This was during the lockdown. That was all arranged for them by the Government of India, Indian Air Force, ITBP, and it was a whole of government approach to fight this. So this was when we had to set up a lab for our, and this is also played out well in the movie, and you will see that once you are able to find time to see the movie Vaccine War. That's gone. Then before the vaccine development, there were no treatment available for this COVID, except that there were 3 major advances that were made in the world. One was a randomized trial done in the United Kingdom, which said that cortisone and steroids are working. That clearly demonstrated that steroids reduce mortality and reduce the skin. The second was remdesivir, and I think all of you know about remdesivir, and that was a WHO trial which demonstrated that remdesivir is working against COVID. The third contribution was by India, which we clearly demonstrated that convalescent plasma by a randomized trial which was done during the lockdown, all video-controlled district hospitals, we collected patients, one was given plasma, one was not given, and it demonstrated that convalescent plasma is not working. So before the vaccine, these were the 3 major discoveries, one by the United Kingdom, one by the WHO, and one by India, that this is the pharmacological treatment for COVID-19. Then what happened was that this article of ours was published in the British Medical Journal. They wrote 2 editorials and talking about how Indian science and how India has democratized research for COVID-19. Once we had the virus, we were able to test the antibodies, and we were able to do the serosurvey in different parts of the country, demonstrating how much of COVID has spread. During the month of May, June 2020, only 0.7% was positive for COVID. That means 99.3% of our population was vulnerable for COVID-19. That was a bit worrisome, and we had to maintain that lockdown during April and May and scale up our healthcare facilities. We had to set up facilities for testing kits, facilities for PPE kits, manufacturing for masks, makeshift hospitals, Air Force bases, quarantine centers, as well as manufacturing for vaccines, which I've come to. Now, as was mentioned, COVAXIN was the first indigenous vaccine, which is a partnership between Bharat Biotech and the Indian Council of Medical Research, which was based on trust, timeliness, and transparency. Every morning we had a video conference with Bharat Biotech. We gave them the virus on the 30th of March. We isolated the virus on the 9th of March, again from those 15 Italian tourists. We gave that virus to Bharat Biotech. They gave us a vaccine candidate by the 30th of April. In the month of May, we tested it on rats, we tested it on hamsters, and demonstrated that this vaccine is working, safe, immune, and dosage. Then we had to do what is known as preclinical studies, or studies on monkeys. Now, our country has stopped testing on monkeys for many, many years because of large number of animal activists. So how do we get? So immediately we got, within 48 hours, we got permission from the government to capture these monkeys. Now how to capture these monkeys? There is a lockdown. All the monkeys are not getting food in the city, they have run into the forest. So we sent a team which took them about 2 weeks to capture monkeys on Telangana border, near Karnataka border, and then we were able to capture about 20 monkeys and take them to the BSL-4 laboratory in Pune. This is state-of-the-art laboratory where we have all the viruses kept as a repository. You can't enter the laboratory, it's electric fencing, and that was, as I mentioned, the first laboratory in Southeast Asia set up. Now these monkeys were they were given the vaccine candidate, and then these monkeys were given the challenge of the virus. Now we needed a pulmonologist to give them the virus, do bronchoscopy, and give the virus into the second generation of the bronchus in the lungs. Pulmonologists were flown by a special flight from Delhi, who was at ICMR, and the CTC in Pune, the Army Center, they also had a pulmonologist. They were captive in the ICMR and IV guest house for 1 month till the monkey experiments were being done. They were staying there, and they gave the virus in anesthetized monkeys, vaccinated, and then we collected samples from these monkeys every day from their bronchi, whether the virus has grown. And at 14 days, we found that the virus has not grown, and the vaccine has worked. So this monkey business was successfully accomplished, and we found that, and we could go to humans with this vaccine. Now, more interesting part. I received several letters from animal activists that I am being told that Dr. Bhargava, we are going to capture monkeys, and that is against. I had already captured the monkeys. So Ashwatthama Hato, I said, I am not going to capture any more monkeys, because I had already captured those monkeys. So that was the story, and then we came to know that the experiment was successful. We had sent the paper for publication to an international journal. They wrote to the journal that these monkeys are from India working against India. They wrote to the journal that these monkeys were not from a breeding facility, they were captured from the wild. So we had to submit the health certificate of each and every monkey, their x-ray, their blood reports, all that they were healthy monkeys and they did not have the disease from before. So that, after that, the journal published the article. And one story about monkeys I want to tell you. Even the COVAXIN vaccine, the monkey studies were done for monkeys from China in the United Kingdom. So all the monkeys are being exported from China. During the pre-pandemic, they were $2,000 per animal. During the pandemic, it was impossible to get the monkeys. And today, each monkey sells at $20,000. So that was how we were able to test it. Monkeys are still being used for testing. And now, with the ICMR, we have set up 2 facilities for monkey breeding, one in Hyderabad and one in Sasanagar near Bombay, and we can supply enough monkeys to many parts of the world. And so we all see it. And a normal person would say, just capture it, it's outside. No, these are breeding facility monkeys, which are, their health is ensured, and we are able to. So these are 2 big facilities that we created during the pandemic for these monkeys. So India is known to be the pharmacy of the world. But with this COVAXIN, we demonstrated to the world that we can develop an indigenous vaccine from start to end. And this was a game changer when COVAXIN proved that we could manufacture vaccines from start to. If you know that 60% of the generic drugs in the world are supplied from India. So India is known as the vaccine, is the pharmacy of the world. But now it is also established that we are a vaccine superpower. We manufactured our own indigenous vaccine. We supplied vaccine because of the largest manufacturing facility in the world in Pune. We supplied vaccines to more than 100 countries across the world. So that is this little story I want to show, because this shows that in 1947 we have the first Health Minister of India, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, receiving a box from the High Commissioner of Canada at the Bombay port. And what is this box? This box is after the Second World War, when penicillin was invented. They gave us penicillin. One box of penicillin was given to India, and we were able to set up our own antibiotic laboratories. Hindustan Antibiotics and other government antibiotic agencies were able to supply antibiotics now to the entire world. So this was in 1947 when we got it from Canada. In 2021, we supplied the vaccine to more than 100 countries. So that is how India has changed tremendously. So right from funding to preclinical studies, to clinical studies, to laboratory studies, to epidemiology studies, to rolling review by the drug controller, to advanced purchase order, to at-risk manufacturing, raw material import, and to expedited batch testing, the government played a timely role to develop the vaccine for us. We also set up a national task force which was notified to the Supreme Court on the 18th of March, advising the government on who has to be tested, what drug has to be used, what are the guidelines, what direction has the country to take. Had about 45 advisors from different fields, and we were meeting every week discussing on the scientific approach as a nation, and giving the national task force the protocols in 14 languages. We know we had the largest database, where we had the more than 200 crore people who doses of vaccine that have been given across the country, 2 billion doses of vaccine. And this was because of our universal immunization program, which has been a very successful program for the last 60 years. We are also supplying 60% of the vaccines to the United Nations and the WHO for the world and for the developing world. So that is another advantage, another thing that our country has demonstrated to the world. We had 27 million newborn vaccinations done every year, 28,000 cold chain points, 2.3 million ASHA workers, activated social health activists, and 350,000 vaccination centers, which were repurposed for childhood vaccination, for the COVID vaccination. And rapidly, we could vaccinate such a large population. We also developed the mobile BSL-3 laboratory, the first of its kind in the world, which was set up and taken from Delhi to Paro and demonstrated to the Southeast Asia region that this is can go to remote areas and can work for isolating the virus. We also used the drone for vaccine delivery, again for the first time in Southeast Asia. And if you look at this picture, this is from the Northeast, one of the most beautiful part of our country. And the first vaccine delivery was done from Vishnupur to Karang. Now, if you know that there is the largest freshwater lake in Asia called the Loktak Lake in Manipur. In the middle of that lake, there is an island, and that island has a population of about 3,000 people. So the vaccine was, if you travel by boat from Vishnupur, it is 26 kilometers, then 3 kilometers by boat, and then 2 kilometers walking to deliver that. We delivered this in 15 minutes by drone for the first time. Interesting point here, these drones were tested at IIT Kanpur, which has an Air Force base. You can, as an IIT student, you can also get a private pilot license if you're interested in flying. That was set up in the early 60s. So infrastructure in the country is there for many, many years, and a lot of things are available. They have to be leveraged and used at the correct time. So from land to land, land to hill, hill to valley, valley to an island, so we were able to demonstrate how the vaccine. Anyway, that's okay. So this is a small cartoon which one of our scientists made. So the virus has gone to one small island and says, now I can be safe here because the vaccines cannot reach there. And then you have the drone which is bringing the vaccine to that island. So I thank you for your attention. For attention is the rarest and the purest form of generosity. Thank you so much.